Morning. Sunday morning. This is the first morning I've seen in a while when it wasn't hot already. It's after 8 o'clock. Actually, it's just after 9 o'clock. And I wanted to come on and being pressed in my heart to talk about spirituality, spiritual freedom, and just expanding on what that freedom means. And it actually means no restrictions. And contrary to popular belief or the systems that have carried us this far for the last 400 years, which is about 10 to 12 generations of following the thoughts and logic of language that was not our own. And so just the idea of that puts restrictions on our freedom and our spirit. And they've been passed down from one generation to another. And some of the things that have been primary to our foundations, like trust in the Lord and lean not to your own understanding. and it's like, whose understanding are you going to lean to? Where else do you get understanding? And that particular passage of scripture is to take you back to the thoughts of your restrictive thinking, and that you're supposed to basically let somebody else do your thinking for you. Let someone else define what your understanding should be. Put fear and doubt in your mind so that you won't develop your freedom of thought, freedom of spirit, freedom in your heart, freedom in your body. And the African spiritualism, just that phrase itself is becoming so popular. And it deserves respect. It deserves respect, and that's the only place we're going to get our freedom from. It has to be derived from that point and understanding. So the idea of going back to Africa, it's a good idea. It's not a bad idea, but I think the crux of the matter is that we go back to that thought, that free thought. That's what our ancestors were told to basically ignore, to turn away from, and turn to everything that our oppressors had determined was best for us, but it was actually best for them in order to maintain and keep us in captivity. And so the freedom of the African spirit and the transformation of your mind has to come from that, to go back to a place where everybody was doing all right, where the land was providing food, clothing, shelter, and whatever we needed. There was no mass murder. There was nobody, killing just to survive. The food came right from the land. And then when the invaders and colonizers came in, that's where the trouble came. And so the breaking of the African spirit, the African mind, the spirit was not broken, but the mind started to take on the things of the captors and the ways of the captors. And this is what we did. And so we have to go back to that place in our own minds. We can't look for certification from anything that came out of that language that most of us call our first language, English. Because once we do that, we're back in the trap of having no confidence in ourselves, fear of how we might survive or might not survive. And it's important to understand that the only limitations that we have are the ones that we place on ourselves. And this comes from adopting that spirit that has come from that first language, the first language that we speak. You know, that English language has been poisoned to us. When we started to downgrade, you know, the things of our own culture. You know, and it's really been the death of us. It's been the demise, it's been the slavery that we bought into. And we couldn't rise up above because so many generations of us were beaten and whipped and killed and raped and robbed into following the line of thinking of our captors. You know, they had this brute force mentality that we knew nothing about and still basically don't know anywhere near as much about it as they do. The art of war is their game. Although we can adjust and come up with our own versions of it, our basic human nature, our basic African human nature is to live and let live. We didn't have to get that from no philosophy books. It's just like, ain't nobody bothering you, so why are you stepping up? Stepping up against me and mine. You know, you want to, Bob Marley say, make my life a prison, because we're following that stuff. And we're gradually breaking away from it. Generations, especially the current generations, the millennials, and you know, and some of us old heads who've been around for a while have been peeping into it, but we help to create the shortcut so that our youth don't have to go through that bondage and enslavement of tradition and religion and thinking that everything that we need to be successful comes from somebody else other than ourselves. That who we call the Most High or God or whatever name you want to call that entity is not within us. And it is within us. And that freedom is in finding it and developing the confidence in it to think your own thoughts first. Think your own thoughts. And just because it doesn't meet everybody's expectation or understanding, it doesn't make it wrong. If anything, it makes it right for you. And then they'll say, oh, they will be seekers of self and lovers of self, and they will be following the dictates of their own conscience and coming up with doctrines and all of these things that say you should not be thinking for yourself. You need somebody else to do that for you, you know, and we'll do it for you. And how could you possibly know? You're not educated in the ways of the church or the Pope or, you know, any of those entities that this world tends to look to as being their authority. And we have to leave all of that alone and come to our own understanding that we get along and don't even care what they think, to support each other, support our own business endeavors, and to support our own education. They've miseducated us for hundreds of years, and we're suffering from it now. So why should we not develop our own forms of education and our modes of how we're going to teach people, young and old, you know, about the freedom that is within us, and that we can develop those things, and we're not causing hurt or harm to anyone else. You know, so somebody laughs because you want to burn candles or incense or sage or whatever. That's supposed to be bad. According to who? What does it do to hurt anybody else of what your practices are? And so we have to develop that confidence. And sometimes it's going to be your imagination. Because yes, your imagination is valuable. If you are made in an image, you have an image, why can't you imagine what you want your life to be? Imagine what you want to consider prayer, meditation, all of those things that have those, has an air of mysticism about it. It's not mystical at all. If it works for you, you honor your ancestors, you're not begging anybody for anything. So why isn't it as valid as going to your churches, your synagogues, your temples, and all of those things? It's like you're free to do it your way. And I do believe that the body is the temple of the Spirit that dwells within. So how I treat it, I have to treat it, be gentle with myself. I'm a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. I have a right to be here. My thoughts are my thoughts, and I'm willing to share them with you. And that's what I'm doing this morning. Anyway, if you didn't catch it from the beginning, you can share it, like it, don't like it. Just don't bring me no troll crap. I don't want to hear it, and I'm not going to respond to it anyway. You all have a good day. Peace.